Hello and welcome to the pilot episode of Practical Metasploit, where I bring you practical and real-world applications to using Metasploit. Just a foreword before we start. Basic understanding of Metasploit and Meterpreter and the general Unix environment is kind of assumed. If you just downloaded Kali Linux yesterday, then you're probably going to find it tough to follow along. You don't need to be a wizard at it, you just need to know the absolute basics to follow along with these videos. Have you ever gained a Meterpreter shell and were worried of losing it as soon as you get it? For example, over here I have the attacker machine on the left, that's my Kali box, and on the right we have the victim machine, which is Windows 10. For example, you make a Meterpreter.exe and you send it to somebody, they double click on it, they get a little bit suspicious, so they immediately open up their task manager and find it somewhere and kill it. That sucks. Just to get a Meterpreter when you get a Meterpreter shell, just to see it end prematurely and quickly. It's one of the worst feelings. Second question, are you tired of constantly having to type so many commands just to get a reverse TCP listener? For example, when you start Metasploit, you have to, what's the first thing you do? You use payload exploit slash windows slash reverse blah blah blah, and then after that you have to set LHOST, and you get the idea. It's about 5, 6, 7 commands before you can actually get to your reverse shell. And it's not very efficient, especially when you log off every night, you wake up the next day, you want to open up a new reverse shell, you have to type in all these commands again. It gets a little bit tedious. And the third question, probably the question that most of you are going to find the most interesting, is do you want to set up a listener, a reverse TCP listener, and just walk away from your computer, go have a coffee, go have a drink, go do whatever, come back, and whoever connects to that Meterpreter session, all their usernames and passwords on their online accounts get dumped to a file automatically. So as soon as you send this malicious exe, or if you exploit their box with exploits or whatever, it doesn't have to be an exe. As soon as you get a Meterpreter session, you want to get their passwords, put it in the file immediately, as soon as they connect. Sounds interesting, huh? So the first thing what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to set up some scripts to so that we just have to run one file and immediately we open up a reverse TCP listener on Metasploit, and also that listener, once somebody connects to it, we're going to run some Meterpreter commands automatically as soon as they connect. So we have to tackle this in two different ways. First of all, we have to set up a script to run our shell automatically on a given LHOST and an LPORT with a reverse TCP Meterpreter payload. And then after that, we want that payload, once somebody connects to it, we want to automatically run Meterpreter commands. Remember, Metasploit commands are different to Meterpreter commands. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to we need 3 scripts. Now, the first part to understanding this is when you run MSF, let me just clear the screen here. When you run msfconsole, there's an argument tackr, which lets you run a script. So from here, if we point to our script, which is in RC format, it's .rc. Once the console runs, it's going to run Metasploit commands, not Meterpreter commands, Metasploit commands. So once we run this, we can set our LHOST, set our payload to reverse TCP, set our port, and then ExitOnSession so that it runs as a background job, and then listen, and then just exploit, and then it'll listen from there. So that's the first thing we have to do. And then after that, we have to put in another script that once this script runs, that's going to fail. Oops, yeah, I pressed enter by mistake. Once that runs, our Meterpreter executes commands when somebody connects. So let's tackle this one at a time. Let's start with, we want to start a listener. We want to create a file that when we run, will start a reverse TCP shell on our IP address on whatever port we want. So the way we do this is there is a specific directory where we have to put our scripts in, and that would be user/share/metasploit/scripts/meterpreter. Okay, will be a second to see that. I'm going to put all these commands in the description below, but I'll just give you guys a second to read that. So now that we're in here, this is where Metasploit keeps all their scripts. And you can see that they have a lot of built-in scripts, but what we're going to do is we're going to create a custom script so that when we do msfconsole attack-r and point to that script, it's going to execute our commands to start our listener. Okay, and the way I've done that is with this script that I made, and this command will work even if it's not created. You won't see this in your folder because it's a custom-made script. Even if it's not there, this command will work. So we're going to nano 9900, and the reason I called it 9900 is because that's the port I'm listening on. If I wanted to make a new script for a different port, I just name it a different port. You can name this whatever you want as long as you keep it consistent. So we're going to nano that. When you enter this command, you're going to see nothing here. It's going to be empty. It's going to be a new file. And what I've got here is what I want to run when Metasploit opens what I want it to do. So what the first argument here is, obviously, you've probably seen all this before. It's just what you type into Metasploit to start a reverse TCP. So the first thing we do is exploit multi-handler. That starts the multi-handler. Our payload is a reverse TCP. You can use whatever payload you want. This is not specific. You can choose anything. We'll set our LHOST to our attacker IP, which is our IP of this box. Attacker port, which is the port we want to listen on. ExitOnSession false, which, as you guys should know, just means that started as a background job so that we can continue listening for incoming connections. And now this here, whoops. This here starts a reverse TCP shell, session. Listener, sorry. And if exploit J was below this line, that's all it would do. It would just start a listener. But we don't want it to just start a listener. We also want it to execute commands as soon as somebody connects. And that's where this line comes in. I'm going to expand it for you because it's a little bit long. Set AutoRunScript multi-console _ command attack-rc, and this points to our Meterpreter script. This is what's going to happen, and as you can see, it says AutoRunScript, which means that as soon as we get a Meterpreter session, as soon as we exploit somebody through whatever means that we have before, that we can, it's going to go ahead and run this script, which as of now you haven't seen and hasn't been created. But you can go ahead and enter this line, and then we're going to go ahead and create this script. So you can name this whatever you want, again, as long as you keep it consistent. And then we exploit /j. And this is going to start a Metasploit listener on this IP, on this port. And then it's going to, as soon as we get a connection, it's going to run this metscript. And this is going to be our Meterpreter commands that we want to run as soon as somebody connects. Right? Again, this is all going to be posted in the description below. Okay, so now we have our first script to start our listener. So we're just going to exit out. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and put in my details off screen because I am using a real box. I'm not using a virtual machine. And I try not to use a virtual machine. So I'm going to set save that. Let's just run that again. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my details so that I can demonstrate it for you guys so that it works later. So my IP and port 9900, and we're going to save it by pressing Control O. So that file was saved. And now we have to tackle our second problem, which is running the Meterpreter script as soon as somebody connects, which remember we named in our file metscript. Okay? And that goes in the same directory. It does have to be in this particular directory. So if we take a look here, I've already created metscript, but this won't be, again, like I said, this won't be on your computer. But if you just type in nano metscript.rc, it'll go ahead and create a file for you. Since I already created it, I've got some commands here. So what does this do? So when we get a Meterpreter session, we're going to run some of the scripts that already comes with Meterpreter. So remember when I asked you guys that first question, were you worried about losing that shell as soon as you get it? Well, once you get a Meterpreter command, you would, if you didn't have a script, you would have to sit by your computer all day and wait for connections, and then quickly type in these commands to make sure you don't lose it. But the beauty of this is that it's all done automatically as soon as they connect, so you don't have to sit there and wait for them to connect just to make sure that the payload dies or disconnects somehow. So the way we accomplish that is with this script, which comes with Metasploit. You can copy this directly. Migrate, which simply, when we open this up, it's going to, the Meterpreter session is going to migrate to a new process. So it doesn't matter if they open this and then suddenly realize something's wrong and then tries to kill it here. It won't appear here because it's migrated to a legitimate process. And by default, migrate will it'll migrate to a notepad.exe process. The second one, killav, this one doesn't always work, but it's worth a shot. It does just what it says. It's going to attempt to kill any antivirus that is present on the system. Okay. So now we have that. So now we have two components that work together to create an automated session. Now all we need to do is somehow bring the two together. So all we have to do is just run one file and everything happens automatically. So let's see how we do that. So again, in Nano we save with Control-O, and once that's saved, Control-X. Oops, not in focus. Control-O, Control-X. What's going on here? I think I just lost my session. I'll just pause and be right back. There we go. Sorry about that. SSH just kind of goofed on me there. Let's just get this out of the way. All right. So again, in Nano, it's Control-O, then Control-X to exit. Okay. So now we have our scripts, which is 9900, which is the Metasploit script, and then we have metscript, which is the Meterpreter script. Now we just have to combine them together. And the way that I did that is I made a basic bash script. So if you take a look at my home directory, it's called 9900listen.sh. So for you guys, you're going to nano 99 or whatever file name you want to name this, listen.sh. So let's take a look at what that does. One line, that's it. So this line, the first one, is telling us which interpreter to use, the born again shell. And this shell command just runs msfconsole with the TAC argument we talked about, and then it points to our 9900 script, which is the Metasploit script. And then that Metasploit script has the Meterpreter script, AutoRunScript inside it. So it's all neatly packaged into one little bash script. And again, all these will be posted in the comments. Every file's source code will be posted in the comments. Okay? Again, we didn't save anything, so we can just Control-X out of that. Clear? Now let's take a look at how it works. So / for any script, 9900 listen.shell. And of course, Metasploit is going to take its time, so I'm just going to pause the video and wait till it comes up. Okay, so after Metasploit loaded, we can see what's going on over here. So we have this is where the Meterpreter starts, Metasploit starts executing. You can see here it starts 9900.rc, and goes through that. It uses the multi-handler, types it all out for you pretty much. Set payload, Windows Meterpreter versus TCP, set the LHOST, reset the port, ExitOnSession false, and then set AutoRunScript, and we have no errors. And now we see exploit running as a background job. Started a reverse TCP handler on my host at my port, and it's now waiting for connections. Now let's see our AutoRunScript in action. So let's say this is my victim machine on the right here. So let's say somehow managed to get somebody to open this Meterpreter shellcode here. So they double click on it. Let's see here. One session opened. And there we go. It's running our metscript down here. See, it's migrating. It's spawning a notepad.exe to migrate to. It's migrated. It's going to try and kill my antivirus. It failed. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Depends on the privileges you have. And there we go. You got one session there. There we go. There's Meterpreter. So in the next part of this video, we're going to look at how we can apply these techniques to so that when somebody opens up a session on our Meterpreter, it gets all the passwords from their online accounts, not only online accounts, but just it harvests credentials from their computers, so from Windows Chrome, from their Wi-Fi passwords, their social media passwords, their computer login passwords. It harvests those and sends it back to us as a text file. So that's coming up in part 2, so that we can practically apply these knowledges. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do want to see future videos, let me know how I'm doing. If it's any feedback's greatly appreciated. So we'll see you in part 2.